let me get this straight. So you get Angelina Jolie in a tight leather outfit, and you still manage to make this movie rated PG. Oh, Disney, you miracle workers, you. Maleficent is directed by Robert Stromberg, written by Linda Wolverton, and of course is based on the classic fairy tale told through a number of authors like Charles Perrault and the Brothers Grimm. And this movie stars Angelina Jolie, Charlotte Copley, Elle Fanning, and Sam Riley. And in Maleficent, a powerful fairy named, of course, Maleficent is betrayed by a man who eventually becomes king of the realm. And in retaliation, she places a curse on the king's daughter, Aurora. Of course, you know how this curse goes. By the time she turns 16, she'll prick her finger on the spindle of a spinning wheel and she will die. However, throughout the years, we get to see that Maleficent begins to be kind of fond of this girl, so that kind of makes things more complicated. Now, Maleficent is very, very, very different from the Sleeping Beauty. Not just the original fairy tale, but also the Disney version. Like, I don't even think it's accurate to say that this is a retelling of the Disney version or anything. Like, there's tons of creative liberty just taken with this movie. Like, it's just so different. So when you go into it, don't try to compare it with the Disney version or even the classic fairy tale. And this to me really does continue like Disney's feminist reinvention kind of thing, because with Brave they had this strong female character who wasn't really looking for romance or anything. And then Frozen happened that really tried to reinvent the whole Disney princess formula thing, and now you have Maleficent, which takes the point of view of the female antagonist of Sleeping Beauty and tries to kind of humanize her a bit more. And in my opinion, Maleficent has lots of squandered potential. Like, there's so many things that could have gone better, they just did not. However, some things are still good in the movie, so yeah. First of all, the director Robert Stromberg, he comes from a visual effects background, and you can really see it in this movie. He worked in movies like Oz the Great and Powerful, Alice in Wonderland. You really see that here. The visual effects are very good. They're not Avatar level game changing or anything, but it's nice to see how they put so much creativity into certain things, like the moors, which is like the land where all the fairies live and stuff. Like, they really do add so many of these different creatures, and these creatures aren't just kind of walking around the background. They are given character. Thus the entire area is given like personality. There is some obvious green screen during certain flight sequences, but it didn't really bother me that much because they weren't that long. And anyway, it's just so cool to see how, like, in here in the moors, like, you can tell there's some sort of lore going on there. They don't delve into it that much, but it's just nice to see so many different visual things going on. There's lots of variety. There are also certain very dark parts near the end that look really cool. Not just dark visually, but like thematically. To me, this movie really is best when it's dark, when it's dealing with heavy themes and stuff. Maybe that's just coming from like my expectations of this movie being like super dark. It's not that dark, but when it is dark, it's always fun to see Disney, a bit evil. I was also really glad to see how they really went all out with the medieval stuff. The interiors of the castle don't feel cheap at all. Like, everything is just production design to the max, especially like the costumes of these soldiers and stuff. I was really surprised again to see that in this big crowd of soldiers at one point, they aren't CGI, they're all there and they're all in full getup, and this getup doesn't look generic at all. It really does look, unique. And Maleficent herself also looks great. She has a couple of costumes in this movie and they both look great. Like, they really feel like the character from the 1959 animated film. And just the makeup and the costume design on Angelina Jolie, like, there's so much attention to detail that it doesn't feel like she's just cosplaying or whatever. It really does become kind of like an extension of her character. Now, in terms of plot, the plot of this movie isn't exactly original at all. Like, you can really see things coming a mile away. However, originality doesn't really bother me. I think it still was competently executed, and it still is interesting for what it is. And the reason the plot works as well as it does is because the central character of Maleficent is very, very interestingly flawed. Like, she does do evil things, however, you understand where she comes from, and while some people might think that her reason for becoming evil isn't exactly the most fleshed out, I still think that in the context of a kids movie, it is very, very interesting, and it's nice to see how this character faces her being flawed and her conflicting emotions. And in the end, this movie is still kind of heartwarming, I must admit, even if again you might see it coming, it still works. Now, Angelina Jolie as Maleficent is definitely the best thing about this movie. She commits to this role so well. Like, she savors every single word she says, and not just in her words, just in the looks she gives and stuff, it really does feel like she brought this character from 1959 to life. The thing I love best about Angelina Jolie is that when she shifts from, evil to, good and doubting herself and stuff, like it never feels like she just like snaps. Yeah, it really does feel gradual. Like you can see she's kind of hesitating and stopping herself, and during certain action sequences, she's really, really good. Sharlto Copley in this movie, he's really good also, even if he doesn't have that much to work with. However, Sharlto Copley is one of the most underrated best actors working today, so it's always interesting to see him. This guy, Sam Riley, he plays Maleficent's crow in like human form, and again, he doesn't have that much of a part, but I thought, he spent his screen time well. It's nice to see Maleficent actually bouncing off someone else. And those are the good points. Now, on to the bad points. There are lots of things that Maleficent could have done better, and they just really, really did not. For one, I think, what's up with the editing? It's just all over the place. I remember vaguely checking IMDb one day and seeing that the running time for this movie was like 2 hours something. Then I went back again, and it was an hour 37. This may just have been a typo, but this movie really does feel like it had cut out so much. During the early parts of this movie, I'd say like even the first two acts, it just jumps from place to place just way too suddenly, and it never feels like there's like something tying everything together. The pacing then gets thrown off, and like for the first two acts of this movie, you keep feeling like you entered the movie theater late. You always feel like you're missing something. And then with the director Robert Stromberg, you can really tell he's still kind of too attached to his visual effects because he spends way too much time focusing on the world he's building with his CGI rather than the characters that inhabit it. There were just way too many scenes here that, just show a shot of Aurora smiling while she's watching a bunch of obviously CGI fairies dancing around. Stromberg definitely has an eye for, visuals, but, to really make the best use of that, he has to understand that characters are still first and foremost. And ultimately, my biggest problem with this movie is that it is ultimately kind of shallow. And I know it's like a kids movie, but I mean shallow as in like the way it treats its characters. Those three fairies who I thought were pretty stupid in the original Sleeping Beauty. Here they are shown to be stupid, and they do kind of embrace that. They really kind of just make fun of the fairies. However, I don't think that was the best way out of this situation. It would have been better to show them as fools who didn't really understand, the human way, but you didn't have to make them so annoying. The king, played by Sharlto Copley, is again also does not really have that much motivation at all. Maleficent's character and Angelina Jolie really are the only like actor character combination that really work, because the other actors here, I feel like they keep playing things on one note. I mean, Elle Fanning does a great job of smiling and stuff, but that's all she is. Whoever played the prince, like he's just a random prince. In the end, I think Maleficent is just an okay movie. Unfortunately, it's kind of a disappointment. It is very much a kids movie though, so when you watch this, don't be like me and expect something so dark. It really is still a kids movie. It's still kind of lighthearted. So yeah. I'm still kind of hoping for more Disney villain movies, hopefully better movies, because even if this one isn't necessarily critically acclaimed, a lot of people are watching it. So hopefully Disney can kind of, fix things up for the next one. Anyway, that is my review for Maleficent. Have you guys seen it? What do you think about it? Whether you loved it or you hated it, whether you agree with me or not, please leave me a comment. Let's have a conversation.